You're practically a romantic hero just waiting to be unraveled." Suddenly, her mood shifted, and she grew serious. "But we need to be careful, Alaric. The syndicate." He stepped closer, the intimacy of the moment overshadowing her worries. "We'll deal with them together, Amara. One thing you'll learn about me: I don't back down easily. You're stronger than you think." He held her gaze, and for an instant, the chaos of the world outside the vineyard faded. Before she knew it, he had closed the gap, his presence enveloping her. The warmth radiating from him was inviting, yet the air between them buzzed with something electric. She could feel the pull, the magnetic connection urging her to move closer. They were in their own universe, untouched by the outside world. "You really think so?" she replied, her voice barely above a murmur. The vulnerability in her question revealed more than she intended. "Absolutely." He leaned in, his breath warm against her skin. "You have this light, Amara. Don't ever let anyone dim it." Time slowed as she lost herself in his eyes, the world vast and endless around them. The tension between their bodies was a heady mix of longing and trust, filled with everything unspoken. In that fleeting moment, they danced on the edge of vulnerability, letting the warmth of the setting sun weave a tapestry for their future. "Then let's chase the horizon together," she whispered, her heartbeat thundering in her chest. "Together," he echoed, his voice rich with promise. And in that moment, they both believed in the possibilities that lay ahead, where the horizon was filled with shades of hope and the sweet scent of ripe grapes. Scene 73, Finding Balance. The soft rays of the late afternoon sun filtered through the vibrant leaves of the vineyard, casting playful shadows on the cobblestone path. The air was fragrant with the ripening grapes, sweet and heavy with the promise of harvest. Amara Sorensen leaned against the weathered wooden railing of the porch, watching the clusters cling tenaciously to their vines, reminding her of her own struggles. She took a deep breath, the fragrant earth soothing yet stirring a tangle of thoughts in her mind. The beauty around her clashed with the storm brewing within. She needed to find balance, both in her work and her worries about Alaric. Alaric Ughandu emerged from the vines, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the golden light. He strode towards her, his expression contemplative, as though he were wrestling with his own thoughts. "You look like you're pondering the secrets of the universe," he said, a teasing lilt in his voice that broke the tension like glass shattering. Amara rolled her eyes, a smile sneaking through her furrowed brow. "If only it were that profound. I'm just trying to figure out how to keep my vineyard from flying off a cliff. You would think I'd have a handle on it after all this time. Or maybe you need a new perspective," he suggested, leaning closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What if we embrace a little chaos, just for a change?" She jabbed a finger at him, smirking. "If by chaos you mean swinging from the chandeliers with the board of directors, then no thanks." Alaric chuckled softly, the sound reverberating in her chest like a comforting melody. His dark eyes gleamed with mischief, a stark contrast to the seriousness that often clouded their conversations. "What if I promise to hold your hand while we do it?" Her heart raced, an unexpected flutter at the thought. "How very generous of you, Mr. Ughandu. To think I'd actually have fun with you." "Challenge accepted," he replied, his demeanor shifting. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her breath hitch, a depth that spoke to her hidden vulnerabilities. "But you know, talking a big game is quite different from actually stepping into the fire." "Is that a challenge?" she shot back, leaning in, their proximity charged with electricity, the distance shrinking as they navigated this precarious dance of camaraderie and tension. "It could be," he said, stepping closer still, the warmth of his presence enveloping her like a comforting cloak. "But it could just be flirting with danger, which is a whole other adventure." His voice softened, turning earnest. "You need to let me in, Amara. We can find that balance together." She straightened slightly, watching the way the sunlight caught the contours of his face, the shadows playing their games across his strong features. The unguarded moments between them felt as potent as the ripe fruit hanging nearby, filled with potential still waiting to be realized. "I don't know, Alaric. It's complicated. You don't know the whole story." "Neither do you," he countered, his gaze unwavering. "But trust doesn't require a roadmap. Sometimes it's just about taking that first step off the edge. Amara opened her mouth, ready to retort, but the weight of his words momentarily silenced her, making her reconsider. You think so? That I should just leap without knowing if there's a net? I think we're already falling, Amara, he replied, giving her an achingly sincere look. We're just afraid to admit it. As the gravity of his words settled between them, the air thickened with unsaid promises. She could feel the pulse of the moment as their surroundings faded away, her heart racing in anticipation. The sunlight dipped low, bathing them in a soft golden hue, an echo of warmth that enveloped them like a shared secret. Amara took an unsteady breath, her heart urging her to surrender to the vulnerability pulsing just beneath the surface. Okay then, maybe we should start making some noise. Exactly, he said, a grin breaking through his intensity. I'm great at making noise if you haven't noticed. A burst of laughter escaped her, breaking the solemn mood, echoing into the sunlight-dappled vineyard. Alaric's eyes sparkled with delight, brushing away the tension they had held, a fleeting moment of levity amid their chaos. Let's get to it then, she declared, her spirit reignited. But no chandelier swinging involved. Only the finest chaos, Alaric said, a wry smile curling his lips as they turned towards the vibrant expanse of wine barrels and rippling vines, ready to navigate whatever awaited them together. Scene 74, A Leap of Faith. Amara stood on the balcony of her vineyard estate, the golden sunset drenching everything in warm hues. The sweet, earthy scent of ripening grapes danced in the evening air, a reminder of her labor and love. She turned to Alaric, who leaned against the railing, one hand tucked casually in his pocket, his gaze distant yet intent. Do you think it's possible to start fresh after everything? Amara asked, her voice barely rising above the whisper of the breeze. Alaric shifted, his dark eyes meeting hers, the hint of a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. Are we talking about fresh wine or fresh starts? She chuckled, her tension flickering like candlelight. Maybe both. It feels like this whole place is on the verge of something new, and I? You're ready to leap? Alaric interrupted, his tone turning serious, yet a teasing glimmer remained. Amara rubbed her arms, the cool air nibbling at her warm skin, the uncertainty curling tightly in her chest. Maybe I've taken all the leaps I can handle. A silence settled over them, charged with unspoken truths. The world beyond their bubble seemed to fade away, the atmosphere thickening like the taste of ripe blackberries at the height of summer. Alaric stepped closer, the space between them shrinking, his fingertips brushing against the weathered railing. Sometimes you have to trust the ground will catch you, he said, his voice a low rumble, compelling yet soft. His words hung in the air, wrapping around her heart. Amara searched his face for reassurance, longing to decipher the depths beneath his enigmatic expression. And what if it doesn't? It will, Alaric replied, and this time the conviction in his voice jolted the air around them. I won't let you fall. She laughed lightly, but it trembled just above a whisper, the architecture of their conversation shifting. You sound like one of those cheesy romance novels. I will catch you, right? He scoffed playfully, his eyes igniting with warmth. Hey, I'm all about elevating cheesy romance rates. It's a noble cause. Amara's heart raced, the corners of her mouth lifting involuntarily as something deeper flickered in the depths of their banter. The sunlight slipped lower, casting intricate shadows across his face, illuminating the strong lines of his jaw and the soft outlines of his expression. As she met his gaze, she saw something wholly genuine, a connection that begged to be explored. With a burst of courage, Amara stepped toward him, challenging herself to embrace vulnerability. Maybe I'm trying to tell you something more, Alaric, she said, her voice thickening with honesty. Maybe I want to leap into us. Alaric's breath caught, a beat of surprise woven with something undeniable. He straightened, a tangible shift in his posture, his stormy gaze now focused entirely on her. Us? Yeah, why not? She tilted her head slightly, her heartbeat quickening. We've been tiptoeing around this for what feels like forever. There it was, the challenge hanging in the air, potent and ripe, like the clusters of grapes swaying nearby, waiting to be transformed into something beautiful. Alaric pushed himself off the railing, closing the distance until their breaths mingled, soft and mingling with the scent of earth and promise. Amara, he whispered, his voice low, wrapping around her like a tangible force. What if we crash instead of soar? You won't let me, she replied, an edge of exhilaration cascading through her, urging her forward. You're the one who keeps me grounded. A slow, deliberate pause settled between them, charged and pulsing, and then his hands caught her waist, drawing her closer. Okay then, let's see if it's worth the jump. The world around them faded into a soft embrace of twilight, and as their lips met, it was electric, a warm fire melting the chill of the evening. The kiss was tentative at first, both of them exploring the uncharted territory with a hunger that had been simmering too long. Amara felt the weight of their shared history, the promises and fears meeting in this moment, a connection so palpable it felt surreal. As they pulled away, both breathless with the gravity of what had just transpired, Alaric studied her, the softness in his eyes now heightened with intensity. Ready to find out how far we can fall? Yes, she said, an upward inflection igniting hope within her, echoing in the fading light, together. Scene 75, facing new challenges. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden glimmers through the sprawling vines of the Sorensen vineyard. Amara stood at the edge of the wooden tasting deck, nervously tapping her foot against the weathered boards. The air was rich with the scent of ripe grapes and fresh earth, yet tension crackled like a summer storm. Are we really going to act like nothing's wrong? Alaric's voice sliced through the warm evening air, his tone edged with frustration. He leaned against a nearby pillar, arms crossed tightly against his chest, jaw clenched and eyes narrowing at her. Amara turned to face him, her heart racing. I'm not acting like anything, Alaric. I have 100 details to manage before the event tonight. She could feel the warmth of the late sun on her skin, but felt the chill of his intensity wash over her. With a huff, he stepped closer, the wooden slats creaking underfoot. You think throwing more wine at the problem will change anything? His gaze pierced through her, laden with unspoken worries. Are you seriously questioning my commitment? This vineyard is my mother's legacy, she exclaimed, her voice rising. It echoed against the vines, a desperate plea mingled with pride. I need to prove I can do this on my own. By yourself? He stepped even closer, invading her space, the gap between them narrowing until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. You're pushing me away, Amara. You're drowning in this, and I'm right here. Right here? She scoffed, gesturing toward the beautifully arranged wine glasses scattered across the table. You're here physically, but emotionally, you're a million miles away. It was a low blow, and she could see the weight of her words land like a heavy stone. His face hardened, and she quickly added, I can't deal with more chaos right now, especially not from us. A flicker of hurt crossed his face before he masked it with steely resolve. You think I'm the chaos? I'm only trying to protect you, Amara. You know that. His voice dropped, now laced with a hint of vulnerability. Protect me or smother me? She fired back, a mix of anger and hurt hitting the air between them. Every time you swoop in like some dark night, I lose a piece of myself. Her eyes searched his, her heart pounding. I'm not a villain here, Alaric retorted, his eyes flashing, every muscle in his body tense. I was at your mother's funeral. I saw the aftermath of what happened. Her hand flew up, cutting him off. Don't bring that up. It's not fair. The wind shifted slightly, carrying her smell of lavender mixed with the damp earth, a reminder of the fragility between them. In that moment of silence, the world around them faded. She could hear the faint rustle of leaves, the soft clinking of glasses behind her, but all that mattered was the magnetic charge between them. Maybe, his voice softened, almost breaking. Maybe all I want is to find our way back. To you. Amara felt her defenses waver, the weight of their shared past pressing down on her like a storm cloud. Alaric, her breath caught in her throat. She could see the battle within him, the yearning colliding with the shadows of his past. His gaze shifted, gauging her response, and with a sudden spark, he reached for her hand, capturing it between his own. Let me in, Amara. Let's not push each other away. Not now. Her body tingled at his touch, and a wave of heat rushed to her cheeks. It's just so complicated, she finally whispered, feeling the walls she'd built around her heart begin to crack. Alaric leaned closer, the air thickening with tension. Complicated, sure, but if we don't trust each other, he he said, his voice resonating with the weight of promise. What's the point? A long silence stretched, a precarious truce hung in the air. Amara took a deep breath, entwining her fingers with his, the warmth radiating between them like an unspoken vow. I don't want to lose you, Alaric. Then let's face this together, he said, his voice rich with determination, and the fierce passion that had always lingered between them ignited once more. Their eyes locked, and in a world filled with uncertainty, for the first time that day, Amara felt a fragile hope blossom anew. Scene 76, Celebration of Unity. Golden rays of the late afternoon sun cascaded through the rows of lush grapevines at Sorensen vineyard, casting playful shadows on the elegantly decorated tables sprawled across the estate's expansive lawn. The scents of rich fermented grapes mingled with freshly cut and blooming wildflowers, wrapping around the guests like a warm embrace. Laughter bubbled through the air, an intricate melody of joy that clashed delightfully with the rhythmic clinking of glassware. Amara Sorensen stood at the edge of the lawn, her hands nervously clutching the fabric of her deep emerald dress. The intricate lace detail clung softly to her curves, and she wore a smile that fought to mask her apprehension. The annual vineyard celebration had always been a sanctuary of laughter and indulgence. This year felt monumentally different. As the hosts, everything hinged on what she and Alaric announced that evening. Amara, her best friend Lila exclaimed, bustling over with a plate of gourmet hors d'oeuvres. You're just going to stand there? It's your event. Live a little. I am living. I'm just considering the grandeur of our lives and the impending circus of expectations, Amara replied, eyeing the guests slowly assembling. I don't want to disappoint them. But Lila merely rolled her eyes, barely giving her a chance to respond. Disappoint them? You've wrestled rogue crime lords, practically flipped your life upside down, and transformed this vineyard into a community gem. What's a little announcement beside that? Just then, Alaric approached, his silhouette framed against the vibrant backdrop. The way he moved, the confidence laced with a veiled intensity, always seemed to capture the attention of anyone nearby. He wore a tailored suit, an understated elegance that amplified the warmth radiating from his deep brown skin. His smile was compelling, but there was an edge in his eyes that belied the jovial atmosphere. Are you ready? He asked, stepping closer, voice low and almost intimate. Amara nodded but couldn't help the unease that fluttered in her stomach like a caged bird. Do you think they'll accept this? Alaric reached out, his fingers brushing against her arm, a gentle touch that ignited something deep within her. They'll have to. This is about you, Amara, not them. You fought for this love, and it's time to share it. His words dripped with sincerity, punctuating her internal battle. Just as she was about to respond, a group of friends from the local business community approached, led by Devon, the charming owner of the nearby cafe. He wore his signature grin, radiating overconfidence. Guess who just celebrated their 10-year anniversary? Maybe you two could learn a thing or two about commitment. Devon began, but Alaric interjected, humor dancing in his eyes. Commitment? Is that what you call it? I thought it was just a particularly long episode of We'll See. The group erupted into laughter, the tension of the moment momentarily lifting. Devon rolled his eyes. You're lucky, Alaric. Everyone knows Amara is the real catch here. Amara's heart skipped at the compliment, but she shot him a teasing glare. I'm far too busy saving the vineyard to settle down with your time management skills, Devon. Just as Devon laughed, Lila poked her head between them. How about another toast? To Amara and Alaric, their new venture into love. As the glasses clinked together, Amara felt a warmth flush her cheeks. Subtlety had never been her strong suit, and she fancied her vulnerability masked in laughter rather than tears. Alaric caught her eye over the rim of his glass, the persistent weight of his gaze softening the world around them. Here's to the unknown, he said, voice thick with meaning, to stepping into the brightness of every shadow. Just don't step too hard, Amara teased. I still need my balance. The playful banter between them felt like the strongest of threads, weaving their hearts together amidst the cacophony of celebrations. As laughter rang out again, the party shifted focus, guests mingling in animated conversations. Yet, amidst it all, Alaric drew Amara aside, the distance between them narrowing until the world around them faded. Amara, he began, his voice dropping to a soothing murmur. None of this matters if you're not truly in it. Breathless, she searched his dark, soulful eyes, feeling the pull of something profound. I am in it, Alaric, with you. And with that, he stepped closer, his intent clear, leaving a tantalizing void that invited her closer still, igniting a promise wrapped in unspoken words. The celebration continued, oblivious to the electric connection that pulsed in the quiet space between them, a celebration not just of unity, but of love emerging from the shadows of their past. Scene 77. Confronting the past together. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow on the sprawling backyard of the Sorensen estate, where laughter mingled with the scent of lavender and freshly baked bread. Tables were laden with the vibrant colors of summer harvest, and relatives clinked their glasses in merry toasts. Amara Sorensen stood beside the long oak table, absent-mindedly arranging a bouquet of wildflowers, fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against one particular bloom, the blue cornflower, reminiscent of happier times with her mother. Alaric Ughandu hovered nearby, his tall, brooding presence a stark contrast to the cheerful chaos. He stepped closer to Amara, dark eyes scanning the familial gathering, assessing the potential judgments lurking behind the smiles. You know, I read somewhere that cornflowers symbolize hope, he said, breaking the silence, his voice warm yet laced with an edge of mirth. Hope or a terrible lack of self-awareness. Same thing, really. Amara couldn't help but snort softly, the tension lightening for a moment. Don't mock the flowers, Alaric. They deserve better than that. Ah, so now you're advocating for flower rights. Should we put on an expo? Save the daisies. Reclaim the roses. His teasing grin crinkled the corners of his eyes. Behind them, an uncle's laughter boomed, and Amara glanced over her shoulder, the sound pulling her momentarily from her reverie. She turned back to face Alaric, noting the flicker of concern in his gaze. This is about more than flowers, she whispered. Your mom would have loved this, he said, his tone softening, even if she'd probably critique my choice of attire. Amara huffed a laugh at that. She was mercilessly honest, but she'd get a kick out of seeing us together today. Alaric shifted, the light catching the curve of his jaw, revealing an unexpected vulnerability beneath the ironclad facade. I didn't know her the way you did. I just know the blame that comes wrapped in her memory like that unwelcome flower. They never show up in your arrangements when you want them to. Amara's expression faltered, caught between an urge to defend her mother and an understanding of the painful truth. You were there, Alaric. You know how it feels to carry that weight. His gaze met hers, intense and searching. But at what point do we stop letting that weight dictate our lives? For both of us. The question hung in the air like a charged storm cloud. Amara bit her lip, the facades around them, her relatives laughing and talking, feeling heavy. I want to be free of it, she said finally, her voice barely audible over the din. But I'm scared. Scared of what exactly? He pressed, stepping closer, the world around them fading into the background. Scared of forgetting, scared of letting it go, and what if I lose my drive? Her breath caught in her throat as if she had laid bare the very marrow of her fears. Alaric took a step toward her, his presence a steady anchor amidst her turbulent thoughts. What about being defined by the love you shared instead of the loss? Your vineyard, your dreams, those can't thrive in shadows. You don't need to carry it alone. He reached out, his fingers brushing against hers, a gentle reminder that even in their shared grief, there could be connection and warmth. You think I still have a chance? She whispered, vulnerability seeping into the cracks that had formed around her heart. Every day, every moment, but it starts with you. His voice, a low rumble, cracked softly with the hope he wished to instill. Just then, her younger brother waved them over, his cheerful shout slicing through the moment. Amara, Alaric, we're making cheers and terror for the toast. Cheers and terror? Amara chuckled, shaking off the weight of the emotional exchange. What on earth have you concocted this time? I'll explain later, but suffice it to say, I may have mixed up a bottle of your special reserve with regular soda, just for fun. He waggled his eyebrows with exaggerated mischief. Alaric looked at Amara, amusement dancing in his eyes. That sounds disturbing. Are you sure you want to contest your brother's questionable drinks choices? Amara shook her head, her laughter spilling like sunlight, warming the air between them. "You're just going to have to save me from terrible choices again." "Always," he promised, that protective edge returning to his voice, making her heart thrum. As they walked toward the crowd together, the weight of the past felt just a little lighter. Scene 78, Shifting Dynamics. The sun hung low over the sprawling vineyards of Sorensen estate, casting long shadows that danced like specters between the trellised rows of grapes. The air held a crispness, charging the atmosphere with an electric blend of earthiness and the sweet scent of ripening fruit. Amara stood in the middle of the rows, masked by her own thoughts, mentally preparing for a day that would challenge everything she had rebuilt since her mother's untimely death. Alaric ambled toward her, his silhouette towering and formidable against the backdrop of rustic beauty. He was an emotional shield, complex, charming, yet marked by the deep scars of a past he didn't often reveal. His dark eyes caught the sunlight, flashing with an intensity that made Amara's pulse quicken. There was something profoundly magnetic about him. "Amara," he called, his voice rugged yet soft, resonating through the air. "The shipment arrives in an hour. Are you ready?" She straightened, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Ready? You underestimate the power of a well-orchestrated vineyard takeover. I have my spreadsheets and everything queued up." A tiny smirk teased her lips, wrapping around the vulnerability she often masked with humor. "Good to hear, but I think you might need a backup plan too," he replied, eyes narrowing with both concern and a hint of mischief. "Last time I checked, we're not just dealing with rolls of oak barrels." "Subtle, very subtle, Alaric," she shot back, her tone playful. "I'm pretty sure half the syndicate is just waiting for me to slip like gremlins in the shadows, eager to pounce." He stepped closer, the tension between them palpable. "I'd prefer to keep you from becoming a target if I can help it. You know I'm here for you, right?" Her heart trembled at the sincerity in his voice, yet a cloud of doubt loomed over her. "There are things from your past you haven't shared. If you're still tangled in that mess, I can't afford to be caught in your crossfire." Before he could respond, a sleek black car rolled past the entrance of the estate. Its presence turned heads as all eyes turned to the arriving vehicle, chilling the air abruptly. Alaric's posture immediately shifted, a steeliness enveloping him. "What is this?" he muttered under his breath, composed yet suddenly alert. "Alaric, who is it?" Amara asked, concern pulling at her voice. "Old associates," he replied tersely, eyes narrowing. "They don't usually come to socialize." As the car halted, gusts of wind kicked up the dust along the gravel path, sending whispers of unease through the rows of vines. The door swung open, revealing a tall figure clad in an expensive suit, his smile as sharp as the designer cufflinks that glinted under the afternoon sun. It was Raymond, an old friend whose smile had always reminded Alaric of a snake, a polished veneer hiding something sinister. "Alaric!" Raymond shouted, striding toward them, arms wide open for an embrace that felt more like a noose. "It's been too long. Heard whispers of your little business venture. Quite the ambitious project, isn't it?" "Ambition works best when it's not constrained by syndicates," Alaric shot back, his voice laced with an edge that sliced through the faux joviality. Amara watched the play unfold, her heart racing. "Alaric, do you want me to?" "No, stay," he interrupted, his eyes never leaving Raymond. "We're all adults here, aren't we, Raymond?" Raymond's grin faltered slightly, then returned with a practiced ease. "I was just thinking how we could help you. You remember our old days, right? Brotherhood and business go hand in hand." Amara inhaled sharply at the double entendre. She could sense the tension spiraling like a storm cloud, charging the very air between them. "I think we're doing just fine without any codependencies." Her voice cut in, bold yet laced with an undercurrent of alarm. "Amara, sweetheart," Raymond replied, slithering closer. "This is man business. Why don't you step aside? Alaric and I have a history." "Then maybe you should keep it that way." Alaric's voice deepened, layered with protective fury. "Apologies, Raymond, but history doesn't hold much value here." The moment hung in the air, ripe with unspoken challenges, emotions lurking dangerously close to the surface. Amara could feel the pulse of tension vibrating through Alaric, mixing with the fierce desire she felt for him, wrestling against the unease of the past that had suddenly reared its ugly head. As Raymond leaned closer, a sweet and smoky aroma drifted from the nearby grapes. an incongruous comfort in an otherwise suffocating moment. Perhaps this vineyard isn't as private as I thought. Perhaps you should leave before you find out just how protective Alaric can be, Amara challenged, eyes narrowing. Alaric's gaze shifted from Raymond to Amara, a flicker of appreciation flashing in the dim light, the connection between them deepening amidst the chaos. I won't let anything happen to you, Amara. Not now, not ever. And in that charged moment, surrounded by uncertainty, Amara realized the stakes had changed once more. They were tied together in a way that felt unspeakably dangerous, but exhilarating nonetheless. Scene 79. Casting aside masks. The sun dipped low over Amara's vineyard, casting elongated shadows across the rows of grapevines, rich with promise and yet heavy with unspoken truths. The air was thick with the scent of ripening fruit and the beginnings of dusk. Alaric and Amara stood near the old oak tree at the vineyard's edge, the tree that had been a silent witness to so many moments in their lives, intertwined like the vines beneath them. Amara wrestled with the basket of freshly picked grapes, her fingers brushing against the tender skins, seeking the perfect ones to fill a basket for their friends. "Do you know these were the same grapes my mother loved?" she asked, glancing at him with her bright, determined eyes. "She always said they were the best." Alaric turned toward her, his dark eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath hitch slightly. "Yeah, I could tell they had something special." He nodded slowly, the corner of his lip twitching. "But don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to uphold as a serious wine critic. What if I let something like sentiment cloud my judgment?" He joked, a hint of mischief lacing his words. "You?" Amara laughed, the sound a melody only he noticed, beautiful against the growing hum of evening insects. "Serious? More like a grape thief in disguise." "Hey, if you're referring to the last time in the cellar after hours, I'm innocent. I was merely taste testing," he shot back, a playful arrogance in his voice. "Right," she said, rolling her eyes as she deftly poured some grapes into his basket. "And I suppose all those bottles were testing your palate too?" There was a moment of silence as they exchanged lingering glances, the laughter fading into something more profound. Alaric stepped closer, the air between them charged with unuttered confessions. "Let's just say I value quality over quantity," he admitted softly, the tension palpable. As she reached for another cluster of grapes, Amara hesitated, her heart tapping against her chest. "I sometimes think we have so many layers," she began, the vulnerability in her voice transparent, like the grape skins. "We hide behind them, shielding ourselves from everything." The weight of her honesty hung between them like ripe fruit. Alaric's jaw tightened slightly. He stepped closer, reducing the distance until they were barely an arm's length apart. "What if I told you I've lost count of my layers? They're wrapped around secrets, shadows, things I wish I could reverse." His gaze softened, revealing a crack in his guarded armor. "Then we could peel them away together," Amara suggested, her voice barely a whisper. It was a bold notion, laden with the history of her own fears and failures. "Is that so?" he replied, a challenging sparkle in his eyes. "What would we even uncover?" Amara bit her lip, considering her next words carefully. "Maybe fear, maybe hurt, or something beautiful. Like you said, each layer has its own story." A small smile tugged at the corners of Alaric's mouth. "What if we start with the easy ones? Tell me something I don't know." With a shake of her head, Amara laughed lightly, appearing carefree, but knowing this moment was anything but. "You'll have to go first. I'm not revealing my dark secrets unilaterally." Her playful challenge danced in the air, rousing a competitive edge that he recognized and loved. "Fair enough." His eyes narrowed playfully. "I once drank an entire barrel of your mother's favorite wine during a blind tasting, only fell asleep and ruined my best shirt." He paused, adding, "The embarrassment still haunts me." Amara's soft laughter filled the space between them, bubbling over like the last drop of wine. "At least it wasn't a crime syndicate threatening your life, right?" "Touche," he replied, the grin stretching across his face. Beneath the banter, they both felt the gravity of their shared burdens. "But seriously, we need to set our boundaries straight. Being close means we'll hurt each other if we aren't careful." She nodded slowly, the warmth of his proximity igniting something deep inside her. "And if we let those walls down, what then?" That's where the real story begins. Amara. His voice dropped to a near whisper, a silent promise filled with unspoken desires and guarded ambitions. As the last light of day began to fade, enveloping them in twilight, Amara stepped closer, her heartbeat echoing the rhythm of vulnerability. Then let's write that story. Their gazes deepened, enveloped in a haze of anticipation, and for a fleeting moment, the world around them ceased to exist. Perhaps they would find what lay beneath the masks they wore. Perhaps they would be each other's salvation. Scene 80. Unbreakable Bond. The dim light of the vineyard's lanterns cast a warm glow across Amara Sorensen's face, illuminating the fine beads of perspiration that clung to her brow. She stood poised on the patio of her vineyard's estate, the fragrant air thick with the scent of blooming jasmine, mingling with the rich earthiness of the freshly turned soil. The distant hum of crickets filled the silence, punctuated by the occasional rustle of leaves as a gentle breeze danced through the vines. Alaric Ughandu lingered just a few steps away, his presence both a comfort and a tension, a living contradiction she was still learning to decipher. "Do you ever think about how we ended up here?" Alaric's voice was low, almost drenched in reverence, as he leaned casually against the wooden railing, the contours of his form accentuated by the soft light. His gaze never left her, a mixture of intensity and something deeper, an emotion simmering beneath the surface. "I've thought about little else since this all began," Amara replied, testing the waters of their conversation, her heart quickening as she held his gaze. "Every decision, every fight, it all led us here." She stepped closer, the wooden boards creaking underfoot, her pulse racing as she crossed the invisible line that separated them. The heat between them was palpable, a magnetic force drawing her nearer. Alaric's jaw clenched slightly, a flicker of something unspoken passing through his eyes. And yet, here we are, staring down chaos. He straightened, inching closer, the air thickening with unvoiced longing. "I wish I could assure you that my past wouldn't come creeping back." His raw honesty hung in the air between them, fragile yet fierce. She could feel the weight of his words, the truth behind them. Amara took a deep breath, inhaling the sweetness of the jasmine again, sweet, intoxicating, much like the man standing before her. "Alaric, if we're going to face whatever's next, we can't keep pretending we're just partners in this." Her voice trembled with urgency, her resolve wavering. He stepped into her space, the warmth radiating from his body becoming a tangible force. "Then what are we?" The challenge was clear, his brow lifting slightly. There was a slight tremor in his voice, revealing a vulnerability that made her breath hitch. "I." Amara hesitated, biting her lower lip as words danced teasingly on the tip of her tongue. Her resolve threatened to crumble when faced with the depths of his steadfast stare. Instead, she closed that distance. Their eyes locked, and a shared breath bridged the gap between thought and action. She could see the storm in his eyes, the intertwining of urgency and desire. She took a tentative step forward, daring to confront the spark that had been igniting between them for so long. At that moment, without preamble, Alaric reached out, cupping her face in his palm, fingers brushing against her skin softly, yet erasing any boundaries left between them. "Let's stop playing hide and seek with our feelings." His voice was a firm whisper, laced with determination, as he leaned in closer still, his breath mingling with hers. Amara's heart raced as she found herself lost in his gaze. The world around them dimmed, leaving only the two of them suspended in time, the universe narrowing to this singular moment. "And if we fail," she finally whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Alaric's mouth quirked into a half-smile, infusing a bit of levity into the tense exchange. "Then at least we'll have a good story to tell our friends. How to fail spectacularly in style." He replied with that charming wit that made her laugh in the midst of turmoil. "Spectacularly, huh? Sounds like trouble." Amara replied, her lips curling, the weight of her fears sliding away just a fraction. "Trouble's my middle name," he shot back, humor lacing his words, yet they were underscored with something deeper. "But it's a risk I'm willing to take." With an electric energy crackling between them, Amara knew she was standing on the brink of something monumental. She needed to take that leap. "Okay then," she murmured, closing the gap entirely, her heart hammering in her chest. In a swift movement, Alaric cupped her face, his thumb painting soft strokes along her cheek as he leaned in, closing his eyes as their lips met, a slow, lingering connection that sent waves of warmth cascading through her. Time ceased to exist as they melted into each other, the kiss deepening, fueled by pent-up desire and unspoken words. As they pulled away, breathless and dizzy, Amara opened her eyes to find Alaric watching her, the weight of their shared burdens reflected in his gaze. No more pretending, Amara. Whatever comes next, we face it together. With a heart soaring against gravity, she smiled back, the world once again illuminating around them, crackling with possibilities. Together, she echoed, their fingers interlacing, united against the chaos that lay ahead. Scene 81, Revisiting Trust. The sun dipped low over the vineyard, casting golden hues across the rows of rich green vines. Amara Sorensen leaned against the rough-hewn wood of the old barn, her fingers tracing the deep grooves that had formed over years of weathering elements and holding secrets. She inhaled deeply, the scent of bruised grapes hanging in the air, imbued with an undertone of earthy richness. The day was beautiful, and yet her heart felt constricted, weighed down by uncertainties. Alaric Ughandu strode towards her, footsteps firm yet silent, as if the ground were beneath him alone. His presence enveloped her, a magnetic pull of intensity that ignited her insides with both comfort and confusion. A knot of tension wove between them, unspoken words barely lingering in the air. "Did you hear what they said?" Amara's voice broke the silence, cracking under the pressure of her pent-up frustration. She shifted, folding her arms. "Adira called me this morning. She thinks you're a bad influence." Alaric halted, the clenching of his jaw a visible signal of his unease. "Adira doesn't know me." His gaze was fierce, yet a flicker of something softer lingered beneath, almost pleading for understanding. "Still, she's not wrong about the stakes here," Amara retorted, glancing away, her brow furrowing. "You're so good at creating chaos with a charming smile, Alaric. Is that what she means? Am I just another notch on your—" "Not another notch," he interrupted, a flicker of hurt flashing across his dark eyes. "You're more than that. You're everything." She turned back to him, the tension growing thick enough to cut with a knife. "Then why does it feel like every time we edge closer, someone flings us back into doubt?" "Maybe because you're too stubborn to see what's right in front of you," he challenged, stepping closer, their breaths mingling in the warm evening air. "You think Adira's opinion matters to me? Or anyone, for that matter? And you think defending me means brushing off my concerns?" Amara countered, the rasp in her tone escalating. She could feel the force of his presence filling the space between them, a whirlpool of unresolved feelings and heated arguments that had yet to surface. "Amara, you know trust isn't easy for me," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, gravely sincere. "But I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why are you here?" she snapped, the hurt in her voice unmistakable. "Do you want to save me or just save yourself from whatever you're running from?" She punctuated her words with an agitated motion, a hand sweeping through the air. He caught her arm, his grip firm but gentle, grounding her. "I'm not running," Alaric said, searching her eyes with an intensity that made her pulse race and scatter her thoughts. "I'm right here, Amara, wanting you." "And yet you vanish when things get tough," she spat, her pulse quickening with rising frustration. "I've been right here," he replied, his voice almost hoarse. "I stood at the edge of that cliff with you, didn't I? Ready to jump if you wanted me to?" A beat of silence lingered between them, heavy and electric. Amara inhaled deeply, the sweetness of the nearby grapes mingling with the tension of unspilled words. "I don't like this worry," she confessed, her voice shrinking to almost a whisper. "Your past. It pulls you back, doesn't it?" "Yes," he said candidly, releasing her arm reluctantly as if letting go of a lifeline. "But I'm not my past. I can't let it dictate who we could be." Amara searched his face, the wild whirl of trust and hesitation dancing in her heart. Alaric stepped closer, so near that she could feel his warmth, the unyielding strength that had, in many ways, become her refuge. "I'm trying to figure out how to protect us both, Amara. That means allowing trust to bloom, even amid fear." "Blooming trust? Is that even possible?" she murmured, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes, emotions nearly spilling over. Alaric reached for her again. The brush of his fingers against her skin sparked awareness. "Let's find out together." With a blink, her resolve melted at the promise in his voice. Just as something fragile began to bloom between them, something he always knew perhaps better than she did. Together, Amara repeated softly, the word hanging in the air, a tether, a bridge across the chasm of doubt. Yes, Alaric breathed, their eyes locking, the world around them fading into nothing. And in that moment, amidst the vineyard that bore witness to their tumultuous journey, trust began its tender, tentative ascent. Scene 82, Breaking Ground. The sun dipped low over Amara Sorensen's vineyard, casting a molten golden hue across the trellises of grapes, which swayed lazily in the evening breeze. The air was rich with the scent of earth and ripe fruit, every breath a reminder of her passion, this land, her sanctuary. Yet the serenity of the twilight belied the turmoil roiling beneath her calm exterior. She leaned over her workbench, her fingers tracing the rough grain of a wooden crate, feeling oddly detached, as if the world beyond the rows of vines might crumble at any moment. Alaric Ughandu stepped into the vineyard, his silhouette stark against the dusky sky. He walked with an air of purpose, yet there was an unmistakable heaviness in his stride today. The shadows drew deeper around him, mirroring the weight he carried. With each step, Amara sensed an undercurrent of urgency, and her heart raced. Was he here to discuss strategies for protecting her vineyard from the syndicate's menacing grip, or something else entirely? "Hey," he greeted, though his voice was softer than usual. He ran a hand through his tousled hair, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability beneath his stoic facade. "Hey," she replied, trying to match his casual tone even though her pulse quickened. "Is it me, or is the world trying to conspire against my grapes?" Alaric's lips quirked slightly, and for a moment the tension melted away, displaced by the shared laughter that echoed through the vines. "If the grapes had a union, I'd wager they'd be striking for better conditions." She chuckled at the absurdity, but her laughter faded as the gravity of their circumstances settled back into place. "You know, I'm seriously beginning to think I need a new strategy. This isn't just about the vineyard anymore. They're persistent." Amara, his voice low and steadfast, cut through her thoughts. He stepped closer, the gap between them shrinking until they stood just within arm's reach. "We're not backing down. We'll fight this together." The assurance in his words sent a shimmer of warmth through her, but she hesitated, wrestling with the vulnerability his presence provoked. "What happens if we lose? This place, it means everything to me." He stepped closer still, their bodies almost touching, a comforting warmth radiating from him. "You're worth fighting for, Amara. The vineyard is just a piece of it. It's the heart you pour into it that matters most." His gaze held hers, deep and earnest, and she felt an unexpected swell of emotion. "Alaric," she started, but his finger gently brushed against her lips, silencing her words as he leaned in. In that suspended moment, the tension transformed. Love and fear intertwined in the air between them, electric and palpable. The earthy scent of the vineyard mingled with his cologne, wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. They were alone in their world, standing amidst the lush greens and the vast, colorful tapestry of blossoming flowers. A shiver of doubt flickered through Amara. "We can't mix business with feelings. And you're carrying so much." "Shh," he interrupted softly, brushing his thumb against her cheek. "Let me carry it for a while. Just let it go for a moment, trust me." His eyes searched hers, and she felt the walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. Everyone had warned her about opening up, about letting someone in. But with Alaric, it felt different. Safe. It was becoming all too easy to forget her reservations. "Okay," she whispered, her breath catching slightly as his hand slipped to her waist. "But if we get caught in this storm together?" "Then we weather it together," he said, his voice just above a whisper as he leaned in closer. The warmth of his breath brushed against her skin, igniting a jolt of longing within her. The moment stretched, taut with possibility, as their foreheads touched, sharing the warmth and the shared weight of their uncertainties. Suddenly, the world outside their small cocoon ceased to matter. That was until a raucous shout broke through the tranquility. "Hey, lovebirds. Come on, we're having a barbecue," called out Noah, Alaric's cheeky friend. He appeared by the entrance of the vineyard, grilling spatula in hand, a playful grin plastered across his face. Amara tried to suppress her laughter, but a giggle escaped despite the instant embarrassment. "Oh no, she groaned, stepping back from Alaric enough to catch her breath, yet unwilling to lose the warmth that passed between them. "Just a moment, Noah," Alaric called, a mix of frustration and amusement dance in his tone. "We were having a conversation." "Yeah, about your feelings," Noah chirped back, a laugh echoing in his voice. "You've got to share some of that with the group, man." Amara felt her cheeks heat with a mix of embarrassment and excitement, and a playful smile creased her lips. "Well, I suppose that conversation can wait, but Alaric, this is far from over. Just know that." Alaric's smirk deepened as he nodded, his eyes gleaming with that familiar spark. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Scene 83. Climbing together. The late morning sun hung lazily in the sky, a ball of molten gold punctuated by wisps of cloud. The vineyard stretched before them, rows of verdant grapevines swaying slightly in the warm breeze, as if whispering secrets to one another. Amara stood at the edge of the property, her fingers idly tracing the splintered wood of an old fence post, the solid feel of it grounding her as thoughts swirled in her mind like the clouds above. Alaric approached, long strides eating up the distance, his presence unmistakable even against the backdrop of the sprawling vineyard. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, breath catching momentarily as she met his eyes, chestnut and intense, a reflection of determination and something deeper bubbling just beneath the surface.